how much difference does the putter shaft actually make? We see it with longer clubs like drivers and even irons. The shaft has a really big impact on the performance, and as a result, there are a big focus when it comes to the fitting process. But is the putter shaft a neglected area of the bag? That's something I really want to find out. I've come here to Wishaw Golf Club to see Andy Gorman. He is a putting specialist, and we are going to try a number of different shaft constructions out in his indoor studio to see what differences in performance the different constructions and materials that are available within the putter market have on the performance. It should be a really interesting test, and I've got to say Andy has got his work cut out, because I would consider putting to be the strongest area of my game. So let's go inside, meet Andy. He's going to talk us through the differences in the putter shafts that are available and hopefully give us an idea about what we can expect from this test. Right, Andy, there'll be a lot of golfers out there who think, rightly or wrongly, that the shaft of a putter is simply the means of connecting the grip to the putter head, but presumably there's a bit more to it than that. Just talk us through some of the options that people have and the differences in performance they might offer.
Yeah, very much a case of manufacturers, for me, maybe overlooked the shaft that's going, the connection between the grip and the head. But I don't think that's necessarily their fault. You know, we've now got the technology that allows us to be able to test everything so much more significantly that, you know, we can make shafts out of different materials and change the performance of the way the club works in a client's hand, and you know, we can dial it all in.
And you mentioned the performance. What specific things would a change in shaft, what areas of performance would that affect?
I think the most important thing is the stability of the strike, and you know, whether or not we're making a living at playing, or whether we're a weekend warrior going out and playing for fun, the sweet spot strike is really important. So if we're missing the sweet spot, then that's going to cause twist around the shaft, and you know, that toe strikes will open the club face, heel strikes will close the club face, and then of course it'll transfer energy into the golf ball at a different rate. So we struggle to get the ball to the hole on distance putts.
And so as you can see, we've got three different types of putter shaft here in front of us: a traditional steel shaft, a multi-material shaft, and an all graphite shaft, which we're going to test against each other. How are we going to go about doing that?
We're going to be using GCQuad and their putting data, and the beauty about that is we're going to test the putt at over 35 feet. So, you know, we're going to put you to the test, see how good you are at consistent ball striking, and the club head delivery as well in terms of speed, because that's going to affect how well you get there. And of course, we're going to be testing the shaft and how stable they are when you hit the sweet spot and also miss the sweet spot.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Right, okay, so we've finished our testing. I've hit a lot of putts, Andy. I'm quite tired. 27 putts with three different shafts. And as you can see, we've got three different shafts, but very similar heads. So they're all answer style heads. We couldn't get exactly the same head, but they're relatively similar. And what are we looking at? We see what the data here in front of us, starting with the Wilson, which was the kind of traditional stepped steel shaft. What are we looking at in terms of the data, and how did it perform? The
critical data is your ability as a human test to replicate club head speed, and then the smash factor, which is the relative difference between the club head speed and the ball speed, because that's going to ultimately translate to the distance that you hit the putt. And then how stable the putter was when we hit the golf ball out the heel and the toe. So we started off each of them, first three center strikes, next three toe strikes, and the following three were heel strikes. And that's what we're basing our data on.
In here.
So with the steel shaft, we've got, again, very stable club head numbers. I think you're comfortable with that weight of putter, which is, and length of club, obviously. And then your smash factor out the sweet spot was very consistent. So you found the sweet spot, albeit your club head speeds were maybe slightly out, but very slightly, within 2 or 3%, so not a big number. Toe strikes tended to start a little bit to the right. And again, the transfer of energy, which means you had to put more club head speed in, as you did in a couple of them. To compensate that, well, of course, you knew you were going to hit them out the sweet spot. So let's assume that you didn't know that. That would then translate into a lesser speed going into the ball. So this is where your distance putts, 40, 50 feet, are going to come up significantly shorter when you do that. Heel strikes are going to have the same effect, although we do seem to have seen a much bigger drop off on the heel strikes than the toe.
Yeah, heel strikes were a lot worse. Noticed even out the toe was missing quite far to the right, and I just felt like this shaft had a bit more give to it at impact, especially on those the longer putt we're testing here today. Just felt a little bit softer.
Yeah, so what's actually happening is we've got toe strikes that are going to cause the putter to open up, heel strikes that will cause it to close, but also we've got the lag factors that go on with the shafts as well. So, you know, when the shaft is flexing and not as stable, then ultimately it could be in load and it could be in release. So again, that's going to affect launch.
And more inconsistency,
much more inconsistency, yeah. And that will have an effect on the efficiency as well.
Yeah, cool. So let's move on to the next putter, which was the all graphite shaft. We've got the KBS, the new GPS putter shaft. Talk us through some of the numbers we got here. Again,
I think the weight works perfectly for you. It's 120 grams, a very similar weight to the steel shafts that we're more familiar with. Ultimately, your consistency of strike and speed was there, and we can see that the launch dynamics, the efficiency and the smash factor was much more consistent. I was interested in the first putt you hit out the toe and the first putt you hit out the heel, you hold both of those putts, which means that the stability that the shaft is offering is much greater, and the energy that's getting into the golf ball is sufficient to be able to get the ball to the hole.
Yeah, something I noticed comfortably with that shaft, my dispersion was tighter, there was less variance in the distances between all those putts. As you said, hold a lot more with that shaft than I did the steel shaft, and the feel was very different, felt very solid. There wasn't much kicking at all in the shaft, felt just very consistent, very, not rigid, but just felt like I was in control of what I was doing with the putter with that one.
And you felt the connection between the hands and the club head was much more in control. You could feel the relationship between them.
Yeah, less energy, I think, off the face with that one.
Yeah, definitely. And we see the smash factors were up, and you know the deviation was a really tight tolerance. So very, very good on that. Yeah. And it's the left to right tolerance was really tight, very close to the hole. But the distance, and this is where the big one really kicks in, is the difference between the long and the short. That's where we're getting much more stability on the distance.
That's going to help reduce three putts, right?
Three putt avoidance is what this is really all about. Yes.
So I think this is the leading contender so far, would you say? And then we moved on to the multi-material shaft, which we know is a growing trend in putters. We see a lot of brands offering kind of this graphite steel combination.
Yeah.
Talk us through how that one performed versus the other two.
Right, with the Cleveland, what we noticed and the multi-compound shaft was that it was much more difficult for you to get the club head speed up to get the ball to the total distance. And I feel that that's because it's a lighter shaft, and that translated into your feel as you were swinging the putter. You didn't get that club head speed. You're typically down, 0.2, 0.3 mile an hour on all of the putts. Really was struggling to get the golf ball to the hole. We can still see the evidence over the shoulder, but the smash factor was interesting for me, which is out the sweet spot strikes. It came out much quicker. So we know there's some tech in the head that's allowing us to do that, but ultimately then when we get into the toe and the heel strikes, the smash factor dropped off dramatically, and that's why the golf balls are struggling to get the ball get to the hole.
Yeah, and that's concerning for me. I tend to hit my putt slightly out of the toe, and to see such a big drop off with this particular putter is quite concerning, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, you were the one hitting it, in terms of feel, overall, that's the feedback that we've got to take into account. And when we are looking at fitting putter shafts, it's the feel elements. Is the club launching, with more energy or less energy, or is it just feeling a little bit light? And all of these things have to be taken into account, not just the overall, sort of values on the screen. How does it feel in our hands as well? Yeah,
and some people might like a lighter overall feel, or one that feels quite head heavy, but for me it just felt a little bit unwieldy, like I wasn't in complete control of how far I was swinging it and the speed I was delivering, and obviously we've seen that with the numbers.
We have, and again with the heel strikes in particular, the ball really struggled to get to the hole, and it finished a long way left. So there's clearly some errors that are taking place that are being magnified by that particular club.
Some really interesting findings here, I think, especially on a long range putt. I mean, is this applicable to all lengths of putt, or especially those crucial short putts that everyone's trying to hold?
Yeah, the short putts as well are going to be off. Again, when we misstrike the putter and the ball with the putter, that heel and toe strike that can effectively open and close, so opening a toe strike, closing a heel strike, You know, we tend to hold the putter light. We're not swinging the putter very quickly, just 1 or 2 miles an hour on these really short putts. And subsequently on the back of that, then we're not transferring energy into the ball. So if it's struck at the sweet spot, it'll go straight, it'll stay stable. But we've seen very much, you know, with this particular shaft, that the putter is very stable when you misstrike it. We shouldn't be missing the sweet spots on these short putts, but we do. The recreational golfer doesn't practice as much, but we do see tour players also misstriking the putts. And, you know, again, we shouldn't do that. Definitely a contender for more stability in that putt.
Yeah, so there you have it. It looks like the answer to holding more putts and getting closer from long distances to have as much stability in the lower end, the lower part of the shaft. And we seem to be getting that, or I seem to be getting that from the KBS GPS shaft. So certainly some food for thought there when it comes to the level of impact the putter shaft can have on the overall performance. I was really surprised at the level of influence it had on off-center strikes, the ability or the inability for the putter head to twist with certain constructions. Certainly the all graphite shaft, this KBS GPS shaft, came out on top in terms of minimizing that deflection. Yes, the construction of the head and the different head types and sizes will have an impact on the amount of stability that you get off center, but certainly the shaft can have a pretty tangible impact on performance, especially from those long range putts. So when you're trying to minimize 3 putts, lag the ball close from long distance, switching to a more stable, consistent shaft like an all graphite shaft here is something to definitely consider. Yes, it might come with a bit of an upcharge, but there seems to be some performance gains to be had. Obviously putting, you're trying to gain those marginal gains, those 1-2% that can have a real big impact on your score in a long period of time. So hopefully this video has given you some really good insights into the different types of shafts that are available with the putter and the differences in the performance that they offer, as well as feel and things like that. It's hopefully given you a really good steer in terms of the characteristics of these different putter shafts that are available on the market. But that's all from me from Wishaw Golf Club. I'll see you next time.